Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Hawks Nest here on the Nighthawk Sports Network. I am Brennan Shabath, and we are joined today by the one, the only, the legendary head coach Buffi Burson, UNG head women's basketball coach. Buffy, thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure, my pleasure to be here.
We're very excited to sit down and talk with you. You're the longest tenured coach here at UNG. You have built this program, not only yours, but kind of this athletic department to some degree into what it is today. So we're very excited to sit down and take the time to talk with you. I hope you're equally as excited.
I am, definitely, I am. Thank you.
So I want to start there with that number 30, the number of years you have been here, coming up on 31 in just a couple days here. You'll start your 31st season as the head coach here at UNG. In that time, you've seen this school go from North Georgia College and State University to UNG to 5 campuses, NAIA up to NCAA D2. You've been through all of it, and at all of it, you've had success at the highest level, at the national level, as one of the best teams in the country consistently over that 30-year span. What brings you back for season 31?
Yeah, it's a great question. I often say, like, there's more, it's Pat Riley's quote, there's more to basketball than just basketball, you know, and I know, like, my passion for the game is still there, it's strong. I love the game, I always have, but it's not really what brings me back, it's more of who brings me back. It's not just the players, it's the coaches, it's the people that I get to be around. It's never changed from the day I set foot on campus in 1994. Like, the people I'm around, the players, you know, like the administration, the community, everybody. So welcoming, and then just such good people and so easy to be around, like I said. But as long as I can make an impact on these people, the players, you know, I made a pact with God not too long ago, because I kept seeing all these coaches my age, you know, jump ship, you know, with the portal and the NOI and everything, and, you know, so it makes you kind of look at yourself and say, hey, you know, is it time for me? And I get that question, and, you know, asked all the time, like, how long are you going to coach? And I'm like, my pact with God is, like, whenever he's like says, you know, hey, you can't make an impact anymore and your time is up, then I will walk away from the game. But I still feel like I can help the players that I come across year in and year out with just what's ahead in life, because I've been there, and I know it's not a question of if they're going to face adversity in life, it's when they are. And so I want to make sure that, like, my experiences, I can help them either get in front of them or just how to handle them. So when they do come, they're like, you know, hey, this is nothing. I've been there, done that. So it's more than basketball. Is more than basketball. I mean, it's who I'm around that brings me back every day, and it's who I actually have a chance to make a difference in their life. So my pact with God, as long as I can do that, and I feel like I'm doing that, I'll coach till I'm 120 if I'm still here.
I find it interesting that you talk about kind of, I guess in lesser terms, the modern age of college athletics and how much it has changed with the transfer portal and with players being able to get paid and whatnot. And obviously it's a little different at the Division II level, but this sort of new wave has completely taken over our sport and our world. And you're absolutely right that a lot of coaches just can't stand it anymore. What challenges have you faced in that change, and how are you able to wake up every day and kind of sort of fight that battle, so to speak? And it's not necessarily a winning or losing battle, it's just different. It's just a different day and age now.
It is different. I've never been afraid of change, evolving every year, so it doesn't scare me. I do think the playing field has been leveled with the transfer portal, and it being just, there's just so many players in it. So, I mean, you could wipe your entire roster out, and teams do that. And they could be at the bottom of the conference one year, and they're, like, you know, competing for the championship the next. So you just don't know anymore. You used to be, you know, pretty confident in who you were going to face each year and who could recruit who and what. So that part of it's changed a lot, and it is challenging for that, but I also like that part of it. I mean, it's just, you just don't know. Any program that you face now is going to give everybody, you know, a possibility to give you a great game. It's never going to change. Like I said, I mean, it goes back to your first question about why I do it, why I'm still here. So, I mean, that's always going to drive me. I I love being able to look at different trends in the game of basketball, and just that keeps me going. I mean, that gets my juices going, and just all parts of it, the portal, the way North Georgia is evolving, the way Dr. Shannon has come in and just set the world on fire, and the support that Mary Robb has given us, and it's just North Georgia is just trending so far upwards, it's not even funny. And I mean, we got to win. Don't get me wrong. That's on the top of everybody's chart, that we have to do that. But we're also like in a really good spot, and we have a lot of support, and that gets me up too. Like, that gets me fired up. Like, it's not just you're going to work at a school that doesn't really care if you win. Just come to work and don't get in trouble, and then everything's okay. It's like, no, I mean, they want you to win. They want you to win the right way, and I've always appreciated that about North Georgia.
When you started your journey as a coach, which didn't start here, but very quickly you got here back in 1994, when you started your coaching journey, though, did you ever think you would be at one destination for this long?
No way. I mean, not even a little bit. I do remember the men's coach at Shorter University, where I was an assistant before I came here. He was kind of talking to me about North Georgia and talking to the athletic director here, Coach Inslee, and everything. And he actually made a statement. He goes, "She'll be there as long as you want." And I was like, "What does that mean? Like, as long as you'll keep her there, she'll be there?" And I was like, I thought that was kind of a weird statement. And then I find myself here 30 years later, and have had opportunities to move on. Have certainly crossed my mind at times, but it always comes back to just it's who you're around, and the grass is never greener on the other side. People always think it is, and I've had my parents in the background, in the past, that would help me with that and help me with big decisions like that. But yeah.
Obviously, you don't stay at a place for 30 plus years and keep your job and be successful that entire time without some building blocks for your program. And so just for those at home that don't know, like, what do you pride UNG women's basketball on? What are the words that you guys use every day to remind yourself and your players that this is who we are at North Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with myself, because it starts with the coach first, and there's humility first. I mean, one of my best friends in coaching coaches the men's team at David Lipscomb, Winnie Acuff, and he once said that there's two kind of coaches in this world: those that are humbled, and then those that are about to be. And that is so true. I mean, I've been on both sides, the highest of highs and lowest of lows. And so for me, it starts with humility, and then also accountability. Like, I've always felt a strong responsibility to be, so my players can count on me to, like, not just like in games and offense, defense, and that kind of thing, but off the court. Can they count on me to be there for them when they're in their darkest hour, or that they're coming into any kind? I mean, it's simple as helping them get into class, or just something like that. Just being there for them, but they know that, like, when they think about me. And then my last part with that would be my faith. Like, there's no way on God's green earth that I would be sitting here without my faith. It's the biggest part of my life. God's living word lives in me every single day, and that, like, drives me. And so if I can get myself, into those three things and live with those, then we can jump on the team side of things. And with our team, I think when you talk about foundation, I don't think you can build a team without trust. And I think that's been our biggest building block throughout the years. Our players always use it, and they're always saying, like, "I got your back." Like, that's a big thing for them. And that is something we're like, okay, well, you do, but tell me what that means in terms of defense, in terms of off the court kind of stuff. So that's a big thing with them. And then, also we look at gratitude. I think gratitude came up really big for us and our foundation of our program when COVID hit. I mean, we've always been grateful for where we play. And I mean, you look at this beautiful building right here, and just that we have scholarship money and we're funded, in a great way. But just when the opportunity is taken away from you to not play anymore, and taken away from so many teams and going through all that, I think gratitude kind of came to surface, and we've tried to keep that in our program throughout, since COVID especially, and put that on the forefront. So trust and gratitude, and then we put a lot of emphasis. Like, you'll hear the acronym BAGT in our program a lot, and BAGT stands for Be a Great Teammate, and that's just that's something that we're very intentional with. I mean, we have them before every player comes into our program, they read the Hard Hat, which has 21 ways to be a great teammate. So we don't just tell them like, hey, you got to be a great teammate. I mean, we're trying to like help them at least recognize traits of being a great teammate and see if they fit those. What are their favorite top 3? Can they carry that out and be that for one another? So that's a big part. And then also in our program, you'll hear our players or you hear us, we coaches talk about A&E and the big C. And A&E is obviously attitude and effort. That's non-negotiable in our program. I mean, I don't think any coach should have to coach attitude and effort. I mean, if any coach out there is watching this, you don't have to do that. That's something that the players control. They know that. They have to bring that every day. They know that, and we bring that in our program. We try to bring that every day. And the big C is consistency. And I've always thought, recently in particular, that it's looking back, like you said, 30 years is a long time. So I've looked at why. And we have had some consistency through the years of doing, certain things a certain way. And we try to talk to our team about consistency, meaning, you can't, or anybody can show up to practice and have one good practice or a couple good practices or one good game. You see the players that come, the one-hit wonders that'll get 20 and 10 one game, and you don't see them for the next 10 or 15 games. And you're like, why am I not playing, coach? Well, those last 10 games, you weren't bringing the same energy or you weren't bringing the same performance that you were that one time. So we try to get them to understand the importance of that. And you have to bring the A&E on a consistent basis, and you have to do what we're asking on a consistent basis. And, so that's a big part of the foundation, kind of in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, there is a lot to unpack there, and it's no surprise that after all this time and all the success, you have multiple foundational values in your team. One that stands out that you talked about is early on in that answer is trust, and be a good teammate. And what does trust look like? And I find it so interesting because obviously with any basketball team, any sports team, teammates are not going to get along. Everybody comes in here for a different reason and has different motivations to be successful or to put in the right amount of work ethic, whatever it is. Teammates are not always going to get along. And sometimes that shows on the field of play, and it can lead to poor results.
Yeah.
You have very rarely had that happen, though, where it's visible to the public eye that this player and this player maybe don't get along off the court. But in reality, that might be the case. But they're able to set their differences aside and build towards the greater good, the common goal, which is winning. How do you do that? Because I can't imagine how difficult that is with young college women to get them to put their differences aside and be here for this team and be here because we want to win. Yeah. How have you gone through that process?
I appreciate you asking that. I haven't ever really thought about the reason or why, or even noticed that. So I do appreciate that. If I had to put my finger on it, I would go back to being a great teammate. I mean, serving others, and that would be a generic answer with that. But I'd also add how important roles are, and understanding your roles and accepting your roles and understanding that roles change, and they do. But then I would also even go as far as to saying we try to make them understand, this is one of the hardest things I think for any student athlete is, especially in team sports, is when you truly make it about the team and you don't make it about yourself, and you have that complete buy-in that it is about the team, the winning's about the team, the practices, everything we do is about the team, then their entire experience changes. And I've seen light bulbs go on in players that are unhappy for maybe not playing like they would like, have a conversation about maybe why that is, and maybe they change their mindset, and then their experience changes. And I think that's extremely important because it's hard in team sports to do that, and it's hard when certain people are scoring the points or getting the rebounds and getting the stats, and they're the ones getting on social media, for the recognition, when you got this player over here that's working their tail off and giving them the ball or doing the dirty work. They're taking the charges, and you're not getting that type of recognition, but you're for the good of the team, and you're happy with that. And we try really hard to to recognize those type of people in our program. If it's not on social media, then at least in our huddle, or in our locker room after the game, something where they know, like, hey man, I get this, I'm important, not just the other people, but that buy-in is important. It's hard to get buy-in. We have 16 people on our team this year, and we've had high numbers recently, and it's hard to get that many people when only 5 play at a time. So I commend like the players and this year's team too that have put their heart out there and said, hey, I am going to make it about the team, and we'll see how that goes.
And I have to imagine that you don't get to that level of being a good teammate and buying in and, like you said, that light bulb turning on. I think that's a great way to put it. You don't get to that level without building those relationships and that camaraderie first. And I have to imagine, just from an outside perspective, I've been dying to ask you about DAWG Week. And I have to imagine that's got to be where some of those relationships are at least started, But for those that don't know, this is something you started, I believe, in 1997. So you've had it for a long time. And it's a week of training that you utilize the core here at UNG to help you develop. And I think when you say utilizing the core in training, people think stamina and physically grueling, and that is part of it, but it is so much more than that. So I just give me the background on DAWG Week. Where did you even get that idea, and what has it turned into here in 2024?
I'll try to give you the short version. Right? We could talk for hours on that. I always say that. It's hard to explain, but I'll do the best that I can. When I first took the job here, we were on quarter system. So, and I noticed, like, especially my we started my 3rd year. So my 2nd year, my 1st year, I was like, these teams that were playing are getting a jump on us because we were NAI. Not a whole lot of practice rules, so they were practicing way before we were. I was like, this is not good. So ended up being able to bring our team in a week early, and so it was just basketball. We went all 7 days. We went basketball, weights, conditioning, all that stuff, and it was hard. The year 2000 hit, which was, probably, this could be DAWG Week 9 or 10. A guy by the name of Colonel Billy Shaw worked with my mom. My mom worked in the military department here, and they worked together, and he said, hey, I want to talk to you. He's Special Forces. He said, I want to talk to you about your DAWG Week and maybe incorporating some of these events that we did in Special Forces. And I'm like, this guy, what's he talking about? He's crazy. He even had like a presentation. I remember going up in the classroom memorial. He's like, look, what do you think about these kind of things? And it was insane. Like it had nothing to do with basketball, like the game of basketball, but it had everything to do with basketball, right? With everything else. So I said, fine, let's try it. So, the year 2000, I think, is when it was. Throughout the basketball, throughout the weights, throughout the conditioning, everything, all of that was out the window, and we incorporated what he called beast events, which is what they did in the Special Forces, water cans, sandbags, anything like that. But he would have very specific instructions on what the event would be. So anyway, it started like that, and we shortened it. That was probably about a 5-day thing, and we just did that. We did like 3 events a day. They were very hard, but very watered down compared to what it built through the years. So it's very interesting to see the alumni come back and talk about different events, because they're like, wait, you just carry 1 can? I carry 2 cans up Amicalola, up the stairs of Amicalola, and that just happened recently, which I thought was kind of funny, because I listened to that conversation at lunch, so I was like, uh-oh, this is going to be good. But it is a week of, like you said, it's not about, people think it's about the conditioning or the strength and making them carry stuff, making them do stuff, and it's not hazing, it's not making them do anything like that. It's more about, here's this challenge, there's 16 of you, right? And y'all have to figure out how to get this stuff with these parameters, and the parameters change, leadership changes, who can lead, who can talk. It's a silent event, it's a team event, it's individual events. There's all these different working parts that we can maneuver, and Colonel Shaw was part of that, and then Colonel Mike Ivey also came in after Colonel Shaw and helped us with it. So they brought the Army side in of it, which I absolutely loved, because it was just something totally different than what we had done. And it was all about mindset. It was about telling yourself, like, I know, like, this is going to be extremely hard, but they're telling me, like, my mind tires way before my body. So that was like a big thing that we would get out of it, right? Like, and that happens on the basketball court. We would always bring it back to basketball. That was my job. The colonel's job was to tell them what to do, and the Army side of it, my job was to bring it back. So when you get tired out here on the court, you can go 60% more than whatever. So we're bringing that parts back. There was just a lot that we brought out of it. When you're tired, when you're hurt, you have to lift somebody else up. There's so many things they had to figure out. I could go on and on. Is there any more specific questions?
No, I mean, that's great. Obviously,
yeah.
it's such a unique sort of exercise that you guys do, an event that you guys have, because it's not just the conditional training, but it's the development of that trust and that leadership and the relationships that you have as a team. And everybody that I've talked to, alums and current players, understand and have that DAWG week, you know, but at the same time they love it and they see the value in it. And I think that's not always easy to do for young people around that age, to find the value in something that they're relatively forced to do, for lack of a better term, in a team setting. You know, a lot of times it's our coach is making us do this and that, and they don't find that value, but you've built something that they take away from, and they realize, I'm a better player and a better person because of this.
And I appreciate that, and we do debriefs after every event, so they're able to talk it out. And if we feel like at any point maybe they missed the point of the event, we can bring it back, but most of the time, you know, they're spot on. They're able to figure out, like, you know, the strengths and weaknesses and like who really does have my back, because at that point you're like, I see like that person hasn't even attempted to pick this can up, you know, to help us get to where we're going. They're just not doing it, you know, or this person is willing to like put 3 of them on their back and go, so I don't have to carry mine. It's just interesting to see those type of things. And we do foxhole tests before like preseason, before we even do a DAWG week, and then we'll do a foxhole test afterwards, and it always changes. It's like I put my friends down, you know, as my 1, 2, and 3, and if I was in a foxhole, who would, you know, save my life for me. After DAWG week, it's usually like these 1, 2, or 3 people, and everybody has them down there because they're like, I know if my life was on the line, I want that person like right there, and that one there, and that one there. So it's interesting. You find out a lot. You find out way more about yourself than you probably ever wanted to know, because it's just extremely hard. But like, it's the best. It's the best. Worst thing and best thing is what I always get.
When I got here, and I've only been here for a couple months here at UNG, and your head coach bio that's available on our website was already written, obviously. And I've pulled a quote from there that is in reference to DAWG week that you gave someone a while back. And I'm not sure the exact context, but it just stands out to me. And you said, well done is better than well said. And that's so poignant to me, not only in the conversation of DAWG week, but in your program as a whole, because I feel like you are not only a woman of few words, but you base everything in how you grade yourself in your program on your actions. And it's not just wins and losses. It's, like you said, the players you develop, what your alumni do as human beings off the court, away from UNG when they graduate and stuff like that. But I also, I feel like it's how you treat your coworkers and your fellow players and coaches here at UNG. One thing that's always stood out to me is you will let anybody come watch practice. And not only is it you can come watch, it's a welcome, it's a hi, hello, how you doing? Yeah, thanks for being here. I love taking advantage of that because I'm a basketball nut myself, and you guys are often just down the hall from my office, so just sneak in for a couple minutes and watch. And that's just so cool for me, and I think for other people that I've talked to, they really enjoy that as well. Other coaches in different sports here at UNG who take the advantage of getting to learn from you and your practices, and they'll take something away from that. Why is it important to you to have that open door policy for everybody, coach, administrator alike?
Because I want to do that too. You know, I love talking to the other coaches, and I've told them that. Like, I learned so much from them. Just, you know, Bryson next door and Sierra next door, Dan across the hall. I could go down the whole hallway and just, you know, the conversations that we have, just watching their teams and how they handle things. But I don't ever feel like anybody gets, I think you're in here just to like joke around with us. I don't think you're like in here to like actually watch us practice. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't ever feel like they're coming here to learn. So I find that interesting. But I would invite, like that's how I started. You know, when I first got into coaching and everything, it was going and watch somebody else practice, or going up to Tennessee and watching Pat Summitt, because she would let anybody come. You know, I can remember sitting in her stands watching their team, and it was very intense.
Really?
But yeah, it was just really cool that she let us do that. So, we've had some coaches come in the preseason, which is cool too, but I don't know what they get out of it. I'll try to give them like a practice plan so they can try to follow what we do, which is fine. But to get back to your, the WD is greater than WS. Well done is greater than well said. Action is greater than words, right? And we were just talking about Dog Week, so it's very important to me that our players know, like, I'm never going to try to like talk them into do something. And I'll give you an example. We would have have our players rappel in Dog Week. So whether it was the Colombo Tower on campus or go out to the Ranger camp and rappel off, the backside of that mountain. One particular time we go out to Currahee and rappel off the backside of that mountain. Well, I'm the first one to go every time, and I have to. It doesn't matter if I like heights, don't like heights, and I will not even reveal that.
I love that.
But it's just, I am putting on the equipment before they can even say, I'm scared to death. And I remember the Currahee moment, and we even have pictures of our players are visibly scared. Like they are like, and so I step up there. I'm probably scared too. Like I said, I'll never tell you if I am, but I'm doing it first, right? I don't have to say a word. I don't have to walk over to them and be like, hey, you got this. You're gonna have to do this. It's just, I'm gonna go do it. And that's a big part of like our coaching staff and our program and everything. But yeah, to get your point, like I love all the coaches, and I love you coming into practices anytime. Like someone to suit you up, and you're gonna need to practice against us.
I'm ready, absolutely. I've been itching to get a ball in my hands again. I promise I'm not just joking around. I do like to learn and watch the plays and see who's playing well.
Appreciate it. Yeah,
absolutely. But
That's
I
cool.
do absolutely appreciate being in there as well. Obviously.
Anytime.
One thing that stood out to me, and I'll never forget this. Actually, when I first interviewed here at UNG and I got a campus tour, you guys were in here practicing. One of the first teams I ever saw at UNG, which I just always think about. And then there was a day early on, because I got here in February, and it was the end of the basketball season, and there was a lot of stuff going on in this building in preparation for broadcasts and tournaments or whatever. Everything was happening, and I was in this building a lot, and it was empty, and it was like 2:56, whatever it was. And I think you and Amber were out here, and some of your managers were out here just kind of chilling around waiting. And I didn't know anybody yet. We weren't talking or anybody. And then 3 o'clock hit, and boom, here come 15 players, binders in hand, shoes laced, jerseys on, ready to go. They don't say a word. They set their binders down, they go and they stretch. And it's right at 3 o'clock. And I've asked a couple of them about it, and a couple of your assistant coaches, and they talk about expectations that you set. And I think when everybody hears the word expectations, they think, how many games are we going to win? What tournaments are we going to win? What championship are we going to raise? Right. But for you, I'm more curious about the expectations of like setting the standard of behavior, and how do you do that so well? Because there are freshmen who have been here for 6 days, and they know what to do, and it's and I imagine you're not telling them, it's the upperclassmen. So how does that get there? Before I even take a guess, how do you set that expectation for your players?
That's a great question. A lot of clarity. Being very clear. We do have standards, and we break our standards down into 3 things: to stay here, to play here, and to win here. And under the to stay here, it has, that's your go to class academics, all of those type of things, be on time. And so they have all that. We did that before we went on our foreign tour this year. And to play here, we have these things, and to win here, I have 4 very specific things that tell them how we're going to win. And they have to do with field goal percentage differential and free throw rate, rebound war, turnovers, those type of things. So we're telling them how to win. So we're very clear in our standards, and then we're very clear how we want to run our offense. You've been to our practices, so we're like, this is how you have freedom, but this is how we're doing it. And then defensively, this is how we're playing defense. And so if we're going to class, all these things, these standards, not rules, there's a lot of clarity to it. So if anything gets out of line, then it's like, hey, did you know what to do? And the answer is either yes or no. It's yes, because we've told them, and it's very clear. If they didn't, then did you do it? And the answer is no. Then there's no excuses. It's going to be like, okay, well, there is a consequence. So, and those consequences can be across the board. We'll run a triple, or it could be, we could lose a game because we didn't do these things. So there's consequences to all of it. But I think the clarity part, did you do your job? If the answer is yes, then we're in great shape. If the answer is no, then there's no excuses, and we have to like move on for that. But the standards are posted, the standards are in their notebooks, the standards are brought up if we break a, if we're like not in line or something. We've had to do that. And we've had, everybody has issues, and if we have to bring a certain one up and be like, hey, like we have one where we're in a fishbowl in Dahlonega. So, eyes are on athletic teams, not just women's basketball, but every athletic team here. So be aware, handle yourself in the right manner. You can't be a normal student here. If you want to do that, it's okay. You can go do that, but you can't do both. You can't be a part of something like this and do that. So we're just trying to be as clear. I think it's kind to be clear. Mm-hmm. It's unkind to not be clear. And so those are kind of how we set the expectations.
Right. I think it's so interesting when we talk about like all of this. Much of this conversation has been not basketball related. It's all of these things apply to life and apply to just human relationships. We can get there eventually.
That'd be great.
But you have a number of alumni that are not only notable in their community, but in their professional aspects and everything that they do. I got to see that firsthand when Dr. Katie Metrock, who was Williamson under you, she came back and gave the commencement speech this year at a recent graduation for UNG. And she's doing amazing things in the medical field, and just I got to talk to her on the phone, and she reveres you, and her friends do, and whatnot. And so, how proud does it make you to see people like Dr. Metrock and other alumni moving on after their days at UNG and doing big things?
You can see, like, I light up whenever we talk about that, and I go back to. John Wooden's one of my heroes, as he is probably many coaches my age, but his 20-year perspective and he would always try to think, and in this today's practice to me would be, how are these players going to feel 20 years from now? Are they going to walk back through those doors? Are they going to feel good enough about this program and the people that are around to come back through those doors? So I always try to keep that in mind. So when they come back through the doors, like a Katie and all these other, I don't want to mention any names because I will forget so many.
I try to avoid bringing up individuals because coaches feel that way.
I do, I really do.
Yeah.
And I really do feel that way. Our coaching tree has expanded tremendously in the recent years, which just obviously warms my heart. I try to kid with them when they say they're going to go into coaching, because I've always heard that it's like, if you can live without it, don't do it. So I always kind of say, hey, if you can live without this, I don't know that you need to go into this profession, because it is like your life, and it's a lifestyle, and it's always been my lifestyle since I was little. So I kid with them, but I'm so proud of. There's so many different professions that have come out of our program, and you mentioned Katie, and Katie. I had lunch with Katie recently, and we talk about DAWG Week. She brought up her first Code Blue, in med school. The first thing that came to her mind was DAWG Week. She said, I knew I could get through anything. And so when she comes back to talk to our team, she brings that up. I bring that up with our team. I just think that's so cool. And then she just had so many people, professors, everybody here, just pour into her. And now she's giving back to the university, being on the board and speaking at commencement, and just in our Hall of Fame. And there's so many, like you said, there's so many. They're like your children, so you don't want to sit here and go, I could talk for days on them, but I love them so much, and I'm grateful that they do want to come back.
You said something there that I want to ask about, because I'm so curious. When I first learned this about you, you said, in reference to coaching, it's always been a part of your life. And I immediately think of your father, Jimmy Burson, who was a longtime coach here in Georgia and an outstanding football player at LaGrange High School, won a state championship there, played at Auburn, and he was a coach at Milton, I believe, for a very long time, and is in the Hall of Fame in many different places across the state of Georgia. I first learned about him and his NFL days through you on social media, and you love bumping him, and yeah, absolutely, and it's so awesome. And he was a very good defensive back and kick returner for the then St. Louis Cardinals and also the Atlanta Falcons here. And so I'm wondering, because if I did the math correctly, you were born just at the end of his playing career. So I imagine you don't remember too much about his playing days, but he quickly got into coaching.
He did.
And he stopped right before you started. And I'm wondering how much you've pulled from him and what you've learned from him in your days as a head coach.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I almost started tear up, just tears of joy, because I miss him. I don't remember any of his playing days. I know I was born in St. Louis, and then he got traded to the Falcons, and so we made that transition. He only spent the last year of his career with the Atlanta Falcons. His next door neighbor, or our next door neighbor, was the principal at Northside High School, which is now North Atlanta, I believe.
Yeah.
Needed a football coach, and they were friends, and he hired my dad, and so he never looked back as far as like going into coaching, and so it has been. I thought about that earlier today, like driving in. He was on my mind, and I was like, he never we never had like conversations like sitting down talking about coaching or anything. It's just not something we talked about. But I watched him growing up. Like I was always watching him. I was there in the summers with their 2-a-day football practices, and I was on the sidelines on Friday night as the water girl with my brother until he was playing, and I was jealous because I couldn't play. I wanted to play football, and I couldn't do that. I just always watched him, and I took so much from him not even knowing until like you look back now. And one of the biggest things I took, which I'm so grateful for, is that he never humiliated his players. Like he had so much respect for his players. Sorry. And so I took that from him. And so I just, and I talk about, I don't ever get to talk about my mom very much, but my mom was just as important. And she made sure that I knew that I was number one with her, but that when I was coaching somebody else's child, and to never, take that for granted. And so that's always stuck with me. And if you talk to talking about alumni, if you talk to any of our alumni players and they bring up my mom, they would always talk about like how she made them feel. You get the Maya Angelou, the quote about like, you won't remember what you did or said, but you would remember how somebody made you feel. And she always made them feel so. They'd play terrible, and they'd be walking down the locker room, and she'd be, but you look so good, but you're beautiful. And they're like, I played terrible, but you're beautiful. Like you would always try to make them feel so good. But, I look back on my dad, and he did everything with excellence, integrity, all those things. I had that role model on the sidelines. And like I said, watched him, how he did, without even knowing, how he treated his players. And, I remember growing up and seeing napkins on the table at home with like X's and O's and things like that. And I was telling them, we got back from a lunch with one of our donors yesterday, and I couldn't wait to get up to the board to get this out of my head. Like I had a play like in my head that had been going on like during lunch and before while we were driving over there. And I was like, and it reminded me of my dad. You just got to get that, you just got to get that out on paper just to see what it looks like. It's probably nothing, but it's just, you just look back on things like that and you're like, he was a mastermind at like offense. Like he played, like you talked about him playing at Auburn. Like they played both ways. He was running back, defensive back, special teams. Like they did everything. It was just amazing to me when I look back. But yep, my heroes right there. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we can see that play sometime this year.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see.
It's coming.
Absolutely.
I promise it's good.
I do know you want to talk about basketball, and I promised you that we will get there. So
Okay.
With that being said, with all the success that we've talked about, it's no secret that last year was a little bit of a down year for you guys. And obviously there's so much that goes into that.
Yeah.
And you can't just categorize it as, oh, well, we weren't good. And, there's more to that than just the record and what it says. But it does stand out because it's your first time. It's a landmark year in the fact that it's your first time missing the tournament since 2017. And there was so much that went into it. Key injuries, and you lost some key players at the start of the year who didn't play the entire season, but that gave a lot of room, I think, for other people who maybe wouldn't have had the opportunity to develop to the level that they did. And now coming into this year, it feels like you guys have been slighted to the external eye, maybe, of like, well, they weren't great last year. We'll see how good they are this year. Yeah, some of their players are back, but who knows, a 17-12 record last year. I think internally it's like, this team has some talent, and there's a lot of really good players here, and you brought so many people back. You guys returned 89% of your scoring from last season. And so you return an All-American in Caroline Martin, who didn't get to play last year.
Right.
So I'm just wondering how excited you are and how you've graded your team thus far as we're 6 days away from the start of the season.
Yeah, no comment. I can't really give them a grade. I mean, the two scrimmages, we were pleased, and we saw kind of, believe it or not, what we expected. I mean, what we've been seeing. It's great to have Caroline back. We just got Daisha Cannon back. When things were, we just kind of figured out sort of last year when Caroline got hurt, and Daisha was our most versatile player, and then she got hurt for the end of the season. So those were two very important players that are back. So you put them back into, like you said, the experience that we gained last year and just the lessons we learned. There's a hungry group, and with the team we just got through scrimmaging's coach said that. He said, y'all look very determined and hungry. And I was like, I couldn't ask for anything more. I mean, I'd rather him say that than I like your squad or whatever, So, I mean, I'm like, that means a lot. And of course, I didn't tell our team that, but maybe they won't see this, but,
we'll cut it out.
Cut it,
Mute that part.
But that's a good trait, and he said that's a good trait to have, and I would agree. I can't really put a grade. I'm excited. I'll tell you that. I mean, I feel like, I don't really care what anybody else thinks about our team. I mean, I know how hard they're working and how hungry they are and what they want to do. So we'll see how, all that plays out.
Yeah. And still in year 31, you're getting to do new things. You guys went on a cool Spain trip this year that we got to talk a little bit about when it happened. But just tell me here for the fans at home what that was like and that super cool experience. Not only got to go over there, but you got to play, and it's a different style and a bonding experience as well. So much went into that trip.
So much. With the men going to Greece last year, our players put pressure on me,
rightfully so.
We got to go. So
I'm on their side.
Right now?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so we made it happen really fast. And it was like we said, and in the article you did, like it was a trip of a lifetime. I mean, you can't put a price tag on any of that. Like the how they connected on and off the court and the time spent together, and the basketball part of it was big for us. I mean, we're not even running what we were running then because we just had to get stuff in, right? But it was still really good to see. Caroline and Daisha still weren't playing then, but we competed with who I think were two professional teams and played really well. I wouldn't say really well, but we were right there with them. I won't say win or loss, but it was right there, right? So. Just the cultural experience, you can't put, again, I keep saying put a price up, but you can't. At my age, I loved every second of it. Cannot even begin to imagine being their age and being able to do that. And, it was phenomenal. And I think they'll take that with them for the rest of their lives. I know I will.
The cool part about that trip too that I think leads into some exciting just storylines and development in this new season is you guys make a stop in Madrid. You went to Madrid and Barcelona in Spain, but you make a stop in Madrid and you run into Julianne Sutton, former National Player of the Year here, who went deep in the NCAA tournament with you a number of years. And it's not how it worked, but it's kind of like, hey, we stopped in Spain, we saw Julianne, and now we bring her back with us. She's going to be an assistant coach with you guys this year, joining Amber Schedule, another former player of yours. So you've got two former outstanding players. Amber was a good shooter. Julianne was down low getting buckets and rebounds. And now they're both on your coaching staff for this upcoming season.
It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, it was really surreal to see Julianne in Spain because, she was over there for 2 years and she was speaking the language, to the people around us and to the waiters and waitresses, which helped us a lot, obviously. But it was just a neat experience for her to get to meet the team at that point. And then, so when she got back here, 1st of October, it was like, just step right in. Like she never missed a beat, which was really cool. But to have two former players of that caliber on my staff, our staff, can you believe that? I mean, that's like a coach's dream. And they're both so passionate about not just the sport, but North Georgia, University of North Georgia. I mean, they love North Georgia. That's why they're back here. And the program means something to them, and they're not going to let anything bad happen to the program. So I feel very fortunate that one's a guard and one's a post because they're both on both ends, and I can kind of do both and float back and forth. And they're experts at their positions, and they're super competitive too. So I think I'll probably like that as much as I like anything about who they are, is their competitive spirit and what they bring. So I'm excited to see, to have them and have another full-time assistant, Julianne, to help Amber and myself out.
And so with this exciting season that's coming up, and hopefully a better team than last year. Obviously, it looks like it will be on paper for you guys. You guys have a really interesting schedule that stands out to me. A couple preseason tournaments. You'll do the PBC and the Conference Carolinas Challenge, and you'll also host the UNG Nighthawk Invitational. But there's some big games that you guys will have this year. The WBCA preseason poll just came out, and I think if I'm remembering correctly, you have 6 ranked opponents on your schedule, 2 in conference, but then also 2 out of conference as well, in Nova Southeastern and Carson Newman that you guys are going to play this year. Some big games coming up.
Some big games, and you could throw Catawba in there too. You know, Catawba and Tampa, who we played last year, or in the Final Four last year.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, Nova Southeastern coming in here the second weekend. Gosh, Carson Newman, always good year in, year out. Like Coach Mincy and I always try to play each other just because it just helps us both out, win, lose, or draw. And we've been on both sides of it with each other, but it always helps us in, to get into regionals, number one, and then to hopefully go further in regionals. But it doesn't do anything but help us to play those type of teams. And even the teams that aren't in that WBCA poll that we're playing are, traditional programs. I mean, they have good coaches that we've played against for years. The 2 coming in here next week, Emmanuel and Young Harris. I mean, I've known those coaches forever. Lindsay played here, the coach at Young Harris, and coached here too. So just, there's not going to be an easy out on our schedule, and that's going to be in conference play too. But those non-conference games will definitely help us when, for the ones that are really going to count our conference play.
Obviously, they help you guys get better, but
Yeah.
you guys have had your share of battles with Catawba and Carson Newman and like teams in the NCAA tournament. There's some advantage seeing them earlier in the year at least once.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're both very different teams by the time March comes around, but there is an advantage in that.
It does help. I mean, to get how we look again, how they're guarding ball screens, how we do everything against them helps early on, and even the mindset part of it, win or loss or whatever. And if you win, you gotta have your guard up, and if you lose, then you're gonna figure out all the things. It used to be us and Lander, right? I mean, we used to try to. They would win one, we would win one, we'd go back and forth because we would always fix what was wrong in that game, and that's why we were always so. There is a lot to play in those teams early, and then if you see them again, there's always a positive to that.
You guys have practice soon, so we'll wrap it up on this. But what are you most excited for about this upcoming season?
I really enjoy being around this team. I'm excited for them. Like we've already talked about them being hungry. They have a spirit about them that I haven't seen. Like we said, there's a lot of people. There's 16 people on the team, so you could have up and down days, but they don't seem to have too many down days, and they seem to respond very well to coaching and each other. And they, sometimes you don't take criticism, or if you call it constructive criticism, very well, but they seem to. And I know we haven't played any games yet, and things change as you're playing games sometimes, but I'm very excited to see what they can do. There's a lot of talent, like you said. Hopefully, that trends in the right direction. And so, I'm really excited to have that front row seat right there. I hope I don't have to do a whole lot of coaching. That would make me really happy, right? If I could sit there and just say, hey, we've done our work in practice. Let's go, guys, and y'all take care of business. And I can sit there and cheer them on, and that would be very nice, but I know it doesn't always work that way.
Absolutely. Can I stay and watch practice?
Absolutely.
Is that cool?
You can jump in if you want to.
I don't have my shoes, but I absolutely would. Yeah, I'll put some shots up.
Okay.
Buffy, thank you so much. Very glad we got to take the time to do this, and just always appreciate conversations and getting to talk to you.
My pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate it.